Postecoglou, what is going on at Spurs right now? This is Football Talks, and we're going into a bit of a deep dive live about what is the real issue at Spurs. Who is to blame? The fans are calling out Lever. The fans are not happy with Ange Postecoglou either. And to be honest, right now, you've got to look at it, and there is a big debate to have. Who is at fault? Who is at fault for the issues that are surrounding Spurs right now? They are in free fall down the Premier League table. Spurs fans on the radio saying that they're in a relegation fight. Sack Ange Postecoglou now. It's up to the board to find another manager, not us. Shouldn't the board be the ones looking for a manager? You cannot continue with a guy that is just on this losing streak as it is. Spurs in free fall, but the fans want answers to the bigger issues at the football club, and that's what we're getting into today. Welcome along, everybody. Get into the live comment section. Let me know your opinions on everything around Spurs. It is a kind of crazy season right now with everything going wrong with certain big clubs like Manchester United. Obviously, big issues there. Spurs, two of the biggest clubs financially and history-wise in the Premier League, actually fighting out just above the relegation zone. It sounds crazy and ludicrous, but Spurs have still got so much to play for. It is so strange right now how Spurs can be fighting on three fronts for a trophy, and Ange Postecoglou is about to lose his job. Or maybe he's not, because the issue that Spurs have got is financially as well. Can Spurs realistically afford to sell Ange Postecoglou? That's the problem we're looking at right now. I think 12 million, according to the contract, what he's on, what he's earning, and how much it would be in compensation to get rid of Ange. Can Daniel Levy, the known sort of hard negotiator, afford to lose 12 million right now for Spurs? It's a tough one. Do you let him play the season out because he's still fighting for the Europa League? He's still in the FA Cup. He's 1-0 up against Liverpool in the second leg, going into that second leg of the Carabao Cup. If he wins Spurs this trophy, then are Spurs right or wrong to be saying that Ange should be going? All they say is we want a trophy. If Spurs actually do get the League Cup, if they manage to somehow get past Liverpool, should Ange Postecoglou, no matter what his league form is, should he continue? This is the big question and the big debate, I think, when it comes to Spurs right now. And managers in general. If you're still in a certain competition, do you just ride it out, seeing if they can claim that trophy? Or is league form and finances of the Premier League more important than anything these days? Because that is where I think the Spurs fans are looking at Daniel Levy. And the amount of money that's been spent or not spent, the sacking, the hiring and firing over every single manager that's come through. I think they have, in the last, it's hard to remember how many they've actually had in terms of managers right now. But when you look at it, the last 16 years, Last 16 years, one trophy for Spurs on the time that Daniel Levy has been there in charge, or something like that. It's drastic. And you look at the weekend, Leicester. They hadn't won a game. They'd lost the previous 7 games in the Premier League before going into this. You're at home. And yes, there are injuries within the Spurs squad. They are decimated with injuries. When you look at it, Jed Spence, Romero, Van der Ven, Maddison, Solanke, Brennan Johnson, all of these types of players that are out of the team. Timo Werner is out of the team as well at the moment. They are absolutely decimated. Vicario, the goalkeeper as well, the number 1 goalkeeper, he's out injured. But you still got the likes of Kulusevski. You still got the likes of Son. You've got decent players there. Davies was back as well for Spurs. You've got Bentancur in midfield. There are still players there for Spurs who are good enough to beat a Leicester side who had lost the previous 7 games. And that, for me, just brought Spurs right back into the relegation fight, and is why everybody's talking about Ange Postecoglou right now, and why he is probably the next manager to lose his job in the Premier League. When you look around it, when you look at the likes of the teams that are in and around that bottom half of the table, let's say, for instance, from West Ham down to the bottom of the league. West Ham, they've changed their manager. They've got Potter in. You go to the next one. You've got Leicester who beat them. They've got rid of Cooper. They've bought Van Nistelrooy in. When you look at Wolves, that way goes O'Neill. Another manager comes in. So Wolves have changed their manager. Leicester have changed their manager. The only team in and amongst it at the bottom who haven't changed their manager is Ipswich. Even Manchester United, a bit further up the table, have changed their manager to try and get out of the mess. And Spurs really looking at the situation where Ange is right now. I think that's why the conversation is going about. It is quite drastic. It is hard work in the Premier League as a manager. You don't get the time you should get. The money that's spent is scrutinised at a big club all of the time. And when you look at the likes of a manager that Spurs did have, in the likes of Nuno Espirito Santo, who's pulling up trees and working miracles at Nottingham Forest right now. That, I think, is where you're actually at in terms of reality. Is certain managers fit certain football clubs. Ange Postecoglou was seen as this fresh-faced, well, not in terms of physical, obviously, but these new ideas, attacking style football, good to watch. They've got the Spurs type of football back again. That's what Spurs fans were saying. Spurs are back. We've got Ange in now. It's going to move forward. It is understood that Tottenham Hotspur are sticking with Ange Postecoglou amid the injury crisis, and will try to sign at least one player for him this week ahead of the January transfer window closing. That's the latest coming out. And again, it goes back into the point. Daniel Levy cannot afford to sack Ange Postecoglou. I think the fans are asking for more questions on what's happened at board level at Spurs than now down at the manager level. It's a continuation of manager after manager after manager. And this happens at a lot of football clubs. And you could say that Chelsea have prospered from this. Changing managers has worked for them. Again, the environments at different clubs are different to other clubs. For instance, like I said, Chelsea there, not actually being that bad in sacking manager after manager. It worked for Chelsea. That model worked for Chelsea. It hasn't worked for other football clubs. You've got an owner there that will spend money on players. And yes, right now with financial fair play hampering them a little bit more, it's not the same for Chelsea. And their most successful years came without PSR and obviously the money of Roman Abramovich. But now we're still in a situation where they have figured out how to get around the PSR situation and spend a lot of money. Spurs, you could say, have spent quite a bit of money, but still, they're not moving forward. So the fans are going, well, it's got to be the recruitment then, hasn't it? Has to be recruitment. But there is so much more to the situation, and it just looks like it is coming to an end for Ange Postecoglou. And when you look at it, the disconnect is not new, but recent events have brought into sharp focus. Spurs are on a run of one win in the last 12 Premier League games. They have lost 13 out of 23 this season in total. Only Leicester, Wolves and Southampton who are all in that relegation zone, by the way, apart from Leicester who just jumped out of it, but you get what I mean, in the relegation fight. Only Leicester, Wolves and Southampton have tasted defeat more often. Those sides are in the relegation fight. Spurs in 15 might now be too. That's a question I want to ask the chat. The injury crisis, the injury situation, and get your comments in below if you're catching up on this video later on as well. Please do get all of your comments in. Give the video a like as well, please, everybody. Everything that's going on at Spurs right now, everything that's happening at the football club, are Spurs in a relegation fight? That's what I want to know. Are Spurs actually now in a relegation fight with what is going on? Gifted memberships from Kaz and from Tom. Thank you very much. Let's just see. I've had a problem with gifted memberships on YouTube recently. I don't think we have any more. I'm just going to double check on these. I think we've actually fixed it now. Yes, we have. Jeffrey Wright, welcome to the Members Club. And Lou, welcome to the London's Members Club, Louise. Love that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the donations as well. Check out the new badges and emojis that you can get there as well on the members section, everybody. Anyone who does donate or gets a donated membership, make sure you put a big thank you in to the people that did donate them as well. But get into me. Are Spurs in a relegation fight right now? Let's have a look. Hi, Adam. I'm very surprised where they are in the league, but they have struggled with injuries. So injuries to their backline. I would have thought he would have gone today. To be honest, Levy is ruthless, but Levy is also very, let's just say, when it comes to the purse strings, very tight. Very, very tight, isn't it? So that could be that could be something that's fighting against him. But when you look at what is actually happening at Spurs, when you look at the numbers, when you look at everything regarding their form, like just 5 defeats in a row for one, that's crazy for a club size of Spurs. And don't forget them players that I mentioned there, like big players at Spurs, like proper players that are underperforming right now. Did they have enough to beat Leicester? Yes, they did. Of course they did. Spurs have now dropped 21 points from winning positions in the Premier League this season, the most by any side in the division. So they've taken the lead and they've squandered them points. Is that down to the manager? Is that in-game management? Is that mentality of the players? Is it down to quality of players? Well, it can't be quality because they've got in front and they're good enough to go in front. So there is a real mental block at Spurs right now. To lose 21 points from winning positions more than anybody else in the league goes to show, doesn't it? He looks a beaten man, Ange, as well. That's another thing that's standing out right now. And you have to listen. I've got some bits here from his press conference and what he says. Spurs boss Ange Postecoglou admitted he hasn't been able to bring the team and fans together in his press conference after the game. He says, certainly something I wanted to try and do when I took on this role was to try and unify the club and create an environment here where we are all focused on one thing. Obviously, it hasn't worked out that way. It's understandable, like you said, the fans are not happy with the current situation. It is a difficult one to navigate because we need them right now, especially at home, to create an atmosphere. It's Darren, isn't it? I think he sounds defeated as well. And he's just crying out for money to be spent. He's asking the board to actually spend money. But is it going to? That's the thing. We're going to try and bring in one player. I think the mismanagement again of Spurs over the years is what the fans have got an issue with. And I can relate. A lot of Manchester United fans can relate to where Spurs are at in terms of the hierarchy, how the club has been run, what has happened. Like, Spurs have got the best facilities on the planet. They really have. The training complex is second to none. The new stadium is phenomenal. I've been there a few times now. It is breathtakingly brilliant. The setup is amazing. It is. They've got everything set up there for success. How can they just not get it right? Everything else is going well. They're earning a lot of money. The revenues that club is bringing in now because of that stadium and what they do business-wise is fantastic. But when it comes to football recruitment, when it comes to bringing in managers, Daniel Levy is the man with his head on the block when it comes to the Spurs fan base. Is it him that's the problem? Is the common denominator Daniel Levy in running Spurs? The Spurs fans are calling for his head, more so than what they are Ange Postecoglou. It comes to a stage, doesn't it, where you've been through that many different managers. I think you just have to look at it and go, there's something else wrong here with this football club. There has to be something else going wrong somewhere, and it is down, I think, to the way that the club has been run. Let's get some comments in. Yeah, I agree with the money if they were underperforming and falling away from the European places, but they are in 15th relegation. Surely they won't get sucked in. Something is not right there. Look, when Van der Ven comes back, when Romero comes back, you've got Maddison, you've got Brennan Johnson, you've got Solanke, you've got Timo Werner. You've got an awful lot of players to come back there. An awful lot of players to come back into that Spurs side. But then people would look at it and say, it's basically Ange Postecoglou. So then it goes back again. He's got all of these players, and we're reading them out there, and we're going, that's a decent squad. And you go back into some of the games and look at the teams that were out there. There's at least 3 defeats there where Spurs have had their best team out on the pitch. And they've still been beaten. So you can use injuries to a certain extent. You can use injuries and use that as the excuse going along. But look back at the squads and the players that were available and then try and argue that that team is not good enough to beat the opposition who were playing at the time. This is the Spurs side that smashed Manchester United 3-0 away from home. Smashed Manchester City 4-0 away from home. Why are they turning up in them big games and then not turning up in the smaller games? That's it. Did Ruud van Nistelrooy really go in at half-time and say, lads, it's Spurs? Spurs had the lead. Again, going back to that 21 points that they've lost from winning positions in the league. To lose to Leicester, again, having been in front, Richarlison with the opening goal, you're thinking there's enough there to see out a game against a down-beaten, out-of-form, complete Leicester side. But no, nowhere near it. And that's the surprising thing in all of this. That is the real bit that hits. It's like, how can you not have that mental strength to see a game out? Is there something wrong with what Ange Postecoglou is doing in the dressing room? Why are they conceding goals after half time? Why are they looking like they are good enough to win a game and then just completely falling away? And again, we say it. This season, they have beaten United. They have beaten City. They have beaten Liverpool. How is it turning up for individual games that is going to make... how is it turning up for individual games and working it out, and figuring out what to do and how to beat teams, and then just falling away? Is it the players? I think looking at Spurs on paper, they are a decent side. And that's the scary thing, I think, for Spurs fans. It really is. I think that's where you look at it and go, yeah, maybe there's some internal issues here right now. He got it wrong in the 90s when his temporary stewardship became permanent meddling. He should have had a long, hard look at himself after the Champions League final. Has been Levy won't feel any pressure due to not being able to experience human emotions like all sociopaths. Liam says the problem with Spurs is that they spend a fortune on squad players that they don't bring in enough of their own. They don't bring enough of their own through. There's a few players coming through from the academy, but the amount of money that they have spent, you only have to look at what Spurs have spent, and it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up in terms of where they are, where they've finished in the leagues. The inconsistencies of this team over the last 10 years has been there for everybody to see. Will Ange be finishing the season with Spurs? That's the poll that's running right now. Do you think Ange Postecoglou will be still there at Spurs by the end of this season? Let me know in the chat, everybody. What do you think? Get your comments in on that as well when the video has finished. At the moment, 63% of you are saying no. 12% are unsure. 26% you think Ange will still be there. If he wins a trophy, does Ange Postecoglou stay? Does he stay? That's what we're looking at. We will see, won't we? We will see. But I don't fancy him against Liverpool. Not with the depleted squad. I honestly feel like Spurs will get smashed at Anfield. And that game's coming up. I think it's next week, actually. I think they get smashed there. And it's down and out, I think. I don't think they're going to beat Villa in the FA Cup. And that's 2 competitions gone. Can they win the Europa League? Possibly. If all the players come back, they've got as good a chance. I think they're up there with the favourites for winning the competition with Manchester United. So, yeah, you could. Does he stay there for that? Because if he gets that, that's a trophy and Champions League football and everything's all over. But you cannot rest your season on winning a trophy having been so bad in the league, surely. That's the question, isn't it? That's the problem that you've got with Ange Postecoglou. But, hey, Spurs fans have had their say. Spurs fans will keep on going. I don't think Levy's going to go anywhere. Why is he going to? Genius again says, if Ange gets sacked, Levy will have to convince Ron Atkinson to come out of retirement. That's the problem that's been brought up as well. Like, who is out there? Who is out there to actually bring in? Is it a crisis for Spurs? If they turn it around and get a few wins, they're back into mid-table and still in a few cup competitions. Can they pull off a miracle at Anfield? And that could kickstart their season. I don't think he's going anywhere until they're maybe out of the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup. I think that's where it's at. They've still got a lead to take to Anfield, and you just never know. I think they've done this before, and they've been pulled on this before. Obviously, you had Jose Mourinho, who was going in to a final and sacked before he went into the final. I don't think the Spurs fans would stand for that. There's not a chance in hell that they would go for another manager. We are only 4 subs away from 3,000. The channel is moving. It's still very, very young, so I appreciate all of your support at this stage. We are moving forward. We are adding bits to it every day that we can, so thank you again for all your support, everybody. Just tell me right now, this is the question that I want to leave you with, is will Ange Postecoglou, if he wins a trophy, turn these fans around? Is this all that the Spurs fans are wanting? If he wins the League Cup, is just staying in the Premier League enough for Spurs fans? Because you're out of Europe next season completely, even if you win the Carabao Cup. Do they just want a trophy? Is that it with Spurs fans? Let me know in the comment section. Please make sure that you give this video a like on the way out. That was my quick fire live breakdown of Spurs in complete meltdown. Who is to blame? Is it Daniel Levy? Is it Ange Postecoglou? The form doesn't tell a lie. The form is there. The league never lies. Are injuries enough of an excuse, or has mismanagement and misrecruitment over the years finally caught up with Spurs and they are actually facing relegation? Get into the comment section below, give the video a like, make sure you share the video and hit that subscribe button, more importantly, for Football Talks. I'm Adam, I'm out of here. I'll see you in the next live show or video, everybody.